Today, we're going to be checking out the new Peavey 6505 1992 original. So this is kind of exciting. This is Peavey reissuing the block letter, essentially, the original 5150 from 1992. Now, for anyone not initiated, the original 5150 is probably the most significant and important high gain amp of the past 30 years for high gain and especially metal recorded guitar, and metal of all subgenres. And the reason for that is this was the first easily attainable retail high gain 5-gain structure amplifier. Before this, to get high gain, a lot of people would have to, get amps modded, buy something boutique like a Soldano. It was just much less attainable, and this made it easy for everyone to attain. So more than their affordability in the high gain, they have that legendary status because of how great they sound in a full band context and in a mix. They sound full, huge, wide, but they also have this mid-range quality. Some do describe it as nasal, and some aren't a fan of it, but it just makes it work super good in a mixed context. It really makes the guitars jump out. And if you set the EQ, the bass, middle, and treble all to 6, and then slam it with an overdrive, this thing is magic. Now, when I say this is a reissue, they did go to great lengths to make sure that this was just like the original. And the originals, beyond their circuit, they did have a particular transformer. And that power transformer in later iterations changed, and a lot of people felt that it changed how the amp sounded, like with the 5152 and some of the later 6505 variants. So they went to great lengths to recreate that original transformer. Now, how close they got, I don't know. I would really like to hear a side-by-side comparison, or even do one myself. But what I do know is a friend of mine in a band has an original 5150 block letter, and that transformer is absolutely massively heavy. Anytime you pick it up, it tilts to the side of the transformer. And this 6505 original does the exact same thing. It's so heavy. It's maybe the most heavy amp I own. It's heavier than the 3-channel dual rectifier I had a while back. It's just such a pig of an amp. And it's because of that huge transformer. Now to the part of the video I really didn't want to make at all, and that's because there's some QC issues going on. Now, some people were wary because Peavey for a long time has moved their manufacturing over to China. I wasn't as bothered by that because there's plenty of great stuff that comes out for the gear world from China, and a lot of parts are made in China for all of our stuff, even if they're made in America or Europe or wherever else. So I wasn't too concerned as long as they had, somewhat decent QC, but it seems like they may have rushed these out a bit. Mine in particular, the input jacks, both the normal gain and the high gain, did not work great. And by not work great, I mean, with the jack, there's a prong that kind of meets, and they have a kinetic tension bond for when it clicks in there, and I didn't have that bond. I would just put it in there and it just kind of fall out. Put in there and it'd fall out. And I tried every cable, straight, angled, everything, and it just didn't work. I was actually about ready to send this back. I was super upset because this means that they didn't even plug it in to QC. They didn't do it at the factory. Peavey didn't do it when they got it. And I just threw my hands up and was like, I can't trust it. And then, I calmed down a bit and I decided to bend them back into place. I had to get in there very carefully through the opening of the jack and just bend it into place. And now they hold fine, like a cable should. And after plugging into it, the amp just sounded killer. I'm a personally huge fan of that 5150 6505 sound, and it sounds great. It feels good to play. And so I just decided, you know what, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to see what happens. If there are other problems later, I will report on that for more consumer advocacy. But I decided to hold on to it. I'm not the only one that's had QC issues. I posted about this QC issue on my Instagram, and I had someone else reach out to me going, oh no, I have one of these coming to me. I hope mine doesn't do this. And I was like, I hope yours doesn't either. And theirs was worse. Their input jacks were fine. However, or their input jack, because they had the 6505 too. But there's something wrong either with the tubes or blew a fuse or something is wrong because they can't really get any sound. He sent me a video of, playing on it with everything turned on and no sound coming out. And he's really upset. He said I could use this video and show it in the YouTube video. Honestly, I hope Peavey sees this and decides to fix this issue, maybe bolster up their QC, because this is pretty unacceptable, especially for amps that people are really excited for, and especially for the legacy of these amplifiers. I mean, these come from Eddie. We've lost Eddie, and for you guys to just put out cheap stuff that's maybe not QC'd or is going to break, that honestly seems insulting, and I do hope that gets fixed. So before we do the in-mix, I'm going to go over some of the features. Like I said, there's a couple of inputs. There is a normal gain, and then if you want even more gain on this thing, you go into the high gain input, which it definitely doesn't mean. There's more gain on this thing than you'd ever need. You'll hear in the in-mix. And the clean, and crunch channels, essentially, you just switch between them with a button, and they share a gain pot. And then there's the lead, which you go to and has its own gain pot, and then all of them share the same 3-band EQ. And then the rhythm and lead channels, whether you're using clean or crunch, and then the lead, they have their own post gain, which is their volumes, and then there is a presence and resonance control. Pretty simple. Of course, there's an effects loop on the back. It did come with a foot switch, although, and they are made in China, it is what it is, but it's a very cheap plastic foot switch. If you buy this, you may want to upgrade to something more sturdy, especially if you're going to take this out on stage. I was pretty surprised at how cheap feeling the plastic was. And that's pretty much it. So I want to hear this inside and outside of a mix. We're going to hear this going into my 2-Notes Captor X with an IR blend of my DV77 and VM1265 speakers. I'm going to be playing directly into that with my Les Paul, my 97, and it's loaded with bare knuckle pickups. And then we're going to hear it outside of a mix on that exact same setup. And in the out of mix, you're going to hear me every once in a while turn on an overdrive. It's a Seymour Duncan 805, and I'll put on screen when I'm doing that so you can hear how this sounds boosted and unboosted. Let's check it out. So this absolutely does that sound, that block letter famous 5150 6505 sound. Like I said, I would still really be curious to compare this to an original block letter, especially one from like 92, see how close they got it, see how good that transformer is, see if there's, you know, a wide difference, a small difference, any noticeable difference at all. I think that would be really cool. I just have to somehow source a 92, but I'm pretty sure there's plenty of other people on YouTube, some of my contemporaries, that have some block letters and are probably picking up these and can compare it. I'm still pretty wary of the QC issues. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that nothing happens with this in the future and I don't have anything else to report. But of course, if there is something else to report, I will put up a video about it. Thank you for watching, guys. Stay metal.